Trump tightened the pressure on the elite of the Cuban dictatorship, and this Wednesday, the pressure reached the family of a historic general in the Havana regime. Alina Rosales Aguirre Ureta, daughter of General Ulysses Rosales del Toro, was detained by the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement after living in the Miami area, having entered American territory in 2023 with a B-1 and B-2 tourist visa issued in Havana. The case is making headlines because she is not just an ordinary immigrant trying to rebuild her life outside of Cuba, but the daughter of a man who held central positions in the Revolutionary Armed Forces, was chief of staff, minister, and a key part of the communist machinery that suffocated the island for decades. While the Cuban people face blackouts, shortages, lines, fear, and repression, part of the family connected to the high-ranking Castro leadership is seen seeking comfort, precisely in the nation that the regime's propaganda calls an enemy. The Trump administration now turns this contradiction into a political message. Those who lived close to Cuban power enjoyed privileges and tried to use American territory as a shelter. They may start to feel the weight of immigration law and national security. What was the general's daughter doing in Miami? Why does the elite of the dictatorship flee to the United States? How does Trump intend to shut down this network of privileges outside of Cuba? I'll tell you all about it in a moment. If you like this kind of straightforward and no-nonsense content, consider subscribing because here we have videos like this every day. The arrest was confirmed by Cuban exile media outlets and also appeared in the official database of detainees from the American Immigration Agency, according to the Diario de Cuba. The detention center where Alina was taken was not publicly disclosed. What is known so far is that she was in Miami trying to regularize her immigration status while bearing a prominent family name in the history of the Cuban regime. Alina is a doctor by profession in Cuba and the daughter of a general who held decisive positions in the communist government. Ulysses Rosales del Toro was chief of the general staff of the Revolutionary Armed Forces, Minister of Sugar, Minister of Agriculture, and Vice President of the Council of Ministers. The fact didn't come out of nowhere. In February 2026, an investigation by Marti Noticias had already exposed the lives of some members of the Rosales del Toro family outside the misery imposed on ordinary Cubans. The investigation showed that the general's 4 children lived surrounded by privileges, travel, business, and access to elite environments, while the population of Cuba faced food shortages, lack of medicine, long blackouts, and a destroyed economy. A appeared in this scenario as the daughter who had arrived in the United States with a tourist visa and was living in Miami while waiting for an attempt to regularize her status. The question that is growing in the news is simple. What was this family doing, living with access to comfort outside the island, while directly or indirectly defending a system that crushed millions of Cubans? The case exposes the old contradiction of the dictatorship: for the people, sacrifice; for the regime's allies, an escape from extremism, European citizenship, private businesses, travel, and a comfortable life. The arrest of Alina Rosales shows that the Trump administration has started to turn this contradiction into a real problem for those who got used to using the United States as a shelter. The Rosales del Toro family appears on several fronts of this circuit of privileges. One of the daughters, Zulema Rosales Aguirre Ureta, was identified as a resident in Cancun, with business and frequent trips to Cuba. Another, Perla Rosales Aguirre Ureta, appeared connected to the patrimonial and business circuit of Old Havana, in an area associated with hard currency businesses. The only son, Carlos Ulysses Rosales Aguirre Ureta, has a background linked to the Cuban military sector. The family was also linked to access to exclusive properties and to a lifestyle far removed from the harsh reality experienced by most Cubans. That's where Alina's arrest gains political significance. She is not just a detainee in a regular immigration process. She is the daughter of a general from the old guard, a Castro loyalist from a structure that ruled the island for decades. He controlled state sectors and participated in the system that keeps Cuba stuck in backwardness. When American agents take this figure into custody, the message reaches Havana. Family ties to the Cuban regime can become a liability, not protection, but a path to prison. The Trump administration had already been tightening the siege against the dictatorship on May 1, 2026. The White House announced new sanctions against officials, entities, and supporters of the Cuban regime involved with repression, corruption, security apparatus, strategic sectors of the economy, and threats to the national security of the United States. The order also paved the way to target people and institutions that materially assist the Cuban government. Government movement also appears. In another recent case, a few days before Alina's arrest, American authorities arrested in Miami Aides Lastres Moreira, the sister of Ania Guillermina Lastres Moreira, who is identified as the head of the military conglomerate Gaisa. This group is linked to the Cuban armed forces and controls huge sectors of the island's economy, including tourism, commerce, real estate, and finance. According to American authorities cited by the press, Aides was living in Florida, had permanent residency, but was considered removable because of her ties to the regime's elite. Marco Rubio, United States Secretary of State, stated that there will be no place on earth, much less in the United States, for foreigners who threaten national security to live in luxury. The sequence is important. First came the official hardening against Cuba, then came the arrest of the sister linked to Gaisa's circle. Now comes the detention of the general's daughter, a figure from the history of Castroism. This shows a method, not an isolated incident. The Trump administration seems to be targeting the network of relatives, operators, and beneficiaries who have physically distanced themselves from Cuba but remain connected to the power that keeps the island suffocated within Cuba. This kind of news has a strong impact because it touches on an old wound. The regime has always sold the idea of equality, sacrifice, and resistance, but the elite lived a different reality. While ordinary citizens faced lines, blackouts, and crushed wages, families connected to power are seen traveling, studying abroad, doing business, and seeking protection in democratic nations. The arrest of Alina strikes exactly at this hypocrisy, the daughter of a Castro general living in Miami. While millions of Cubans can't escape their own crisis, the case also puts pressure on Havana because it shows that Florida is no longer a comfort zone for some of these families. The regime denounces capitalism, but its protégés run to Miami. The regime accuses the exile community, but its relatives seek safety in exile. The regime talks about sovereignty, but its beneficiaries seek shelter in the same place that official propaganda calls the enemy, for the allies of the dictatorship. The arrest raises an alert. It is no longer just a sanction against a general, minister, or state-owned company. The pressure is starting to reach family members who appear outside the island, enjoying a life that the regime itself denied to the people. I'm Milson Alves, global internationalist, and my purpose is to keep you well informed with the truth every day. The news links are in the video description. Leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel, and at the end take a look at the comments. That way you can be even more engaged with the community. Milson Alves Global.